What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Kensei Sensei, and today we're going to be talking about the different types of adjectives in Japanese and also the different forms of this. Let's get right in. Before we get started with this lesson, make sure you have watched my previous lesson on this and must. If you don't know what this and must are, you wouldn't be able to understand this lesson. There are two different types of adjectives in Japanese, "い" adjectives and "な" adjectives. It is important to know the difference between "い" and "な" adjectives because depending on which adjective you're using, we have to conjugate these adjectives differently. An "い" adjective is any adjective that ends with the "い" okurigana. If you don't know what an okurigana is, make sure you have checked my second lesson, which was on onyomi and kunyomi. Na adjectives are any adjectives that do not end with the "い" okurigana. Usually, na adjectives are composed of two kanji characters, for example, kirei or genki. Now you may be thinking, why do we call these na adjectives when there's no na in these words? And that's because when we place na adjectives before a noun in order to describe it, we need the na hiragana in between. So for example, if I say kirei na hana, or genki na ko, notice how when we are placing the na adjective before a noun, we need the na hiragana in between. That's why they're called na adjectives. As for "い" adjectives, we don't need the na in between. We just need to add the "い" adjective right before the noun. So for example, Kawaii neko or omoshiroi geinin. As you can see, for "い" adjectives, all we have to do is place it right before the noun in order to describe it. Now it is very important to remember that "い" adjectives are "い" adjectives because the okurigana is "い." So for example, the adjective kirei, this term does not have an "い" okurigana, even though it ends with the "い" hiragana. When we write this in a kanji, it becomes kirei, and there's no okurigana at the end, and therefore this is not an "い" adjective. As for adjectives like Kawaii, when we write this in kanji, only kawa becomes a kanji character, and therefore the "い" at the very end is an "い" okurigana. That's why Kawaii is an "い" adjective. Now let's talk about the different forms of this. In Japanese, we have two different tenses, the non-past and the past tense. The non-past actually includes both the present tense and the future tense. What that means is, depending on the context, we can understand that we're talking about the future tense or the present tense, but there is no difference in the word itself. This is actually in the non-past. What that means is even if the sentence is talking about the present tense or the future tense, there's no difference. You can use this for this sentence. However, for the past tense, we have to use something different. The past tense of this is actually deshita. So if I say 僕は学生です, this means I am a student. If I change this to 僕は学生でした, then I'm saying I was a student. 僕は学生でした. Now I want you to be very careful with deshita because deshita actually only works with nouns and na adjectives. What I mean by this is you can attach na adjectives with deshita or nouns with deshita, but you cannot attach "い" adjectives with deshita. So the question is, what do we attach to "い" adjectives when we're trying to be polite and we want to be talking about the past? We have to undergo conjugation. In order to conjugate an "い" adjective to the past tense, all we have to do is drop the "い" okurigana and then add katta. So for example, the adjective kawaii, what we have to do is cross out the last "い" or the "い" okurigana and then add katta, kawaii katta. This alone is actually already in its past tense. However, it is not formal. In order to make this sentence formal, we have to add this. So if I say 可愛かったです, this would be formal and also in its past tense. So an example sentence of かったです would be something like 昨日動物園で見たパンダがとても可愛かったです. That means the panda that I saw yesterday was very cute. And again, going back to nouns and na adjectives, in order to use them formally and in its past tense, we have to attach deshita. So an example sentence of a na adjective using deshita would be 花火が綺麗でした. This would mean the fireworks were pretty. Now let's move on to the informal form of this. The informal form of this is da. Now you may be asking, don't we add this to sentences in order to make it formal? That's true, but like I said in my previous lesson, this has another purpose, which is to confirm the statement itself. And so da does the exact same thing. Da actually can make a sentence more complete. So instead of saying 僕は学生です, you can even say 僕は学生だ, except this is an informal sentence, and you don't want to say it to your prof or anyone of higher status. However, I would say that it is a more complete sentence than 僕は学生. So adding the da to this makes this a more complete sentence. Now here's a quick summary of this lesson. The informal of this is da, and the past tense of this is deshita only for na adjectives and nouns. The past tense of this for i adjectives, however, needs to go through a conjugation. You have to take off the last i okurigana and add かったです. The informal of deshita is datta. I hope you now understand the difference between i adjectives and na adjectives, but if you have any more questions, make sure to comment down below and I'll get to you as soon as possible. Make sure to also check out our Discord and our Amino where we teach free Japanese lessons. But until next time, またね.